Hey there, let's take a look at this Gilchrist Model 5 F5 mandolin that I've been working on. It's in a different video. You should go look at that one where I did the triage of this mandolin, basically. Anything we're looking at today is this crack in the top. Now, I've got it clamped up right now, and I've got some glue on it and stuff. We'll go through this in just a second. But first thing I did, I have had a crack just like this on my mandolin, my elkhorn mandolin, and I thought it was caused by a variety of factors, including the tailpiece that was used on it. I had Tom Ellis look at it one time, and he said that a lot of it was due to the curve of the top, because it is an early mandolin for the builder for elkhorn. It was number 27, and you know, sometimes it takes a while for your mistakes and stuff to show up. But anyway, I have fixed the top crack just like this on my personal mandolin, and it's been in good shape for about 10 years now. So I'm going to use the same technique on this mandolin. First thing I did now, of course, the first thing you do with any crack, any kind of crack, a crack can be caused by two things. It can be caused by humidity or a lack of humidity, which causes the wood to shrink and therefore a crack, or it can be caused by an impact where you hit it, bam, and you have a crack. So if you have a humidity caused crack, the first thing you should do is add some humidity to it and see what it does. The last thing you want to do is immediately put a splint. Somebody asked me about this, you know, aren't you going to put like a wooden splint in here? No, because if its crack is caused by a lack of humidity and you put a splint in there and then it swells up from humidity, then you've got a wedge in there, and you're going to split the top again. So don't do that until you figure out what the actual issue is. I'm really, really, really big on finding out what the actual problem is. Don't just treat the symptoms. Find out what the problem is and see if you can fix that. So I have humidified this mandolin pretty hard for a couple of days. I got it up to about 70% humidity in the case. And the crack did not really close up. So I think what's going on here is I think that this mandolin has already seen some very high humidity. It lives in the Dallas, Texas area, and so the humidity does get up there pretty good sometimes, and it's hot, humid. My guess is this mandolin has seen some high humidity, which has caused the wood fibers to swell, but they can only go so far because of the box. Now, an archtop instrument like this has the option, as opposed to a flat top guitar, has the option of rising and falling, and this is why your action would change quite a bit. But I suspect that this mandolin has seen some high humidity at one time, caused the cells to squish together and shrink, and then when the humidity went back to normal, now the cells are smaller, and basically then you have a split because the top is smaller again. You think about that for a minute. I have seen many cases of this where instruments were over-humidified, and then when they were taken back to normal humidity, they developed cracks. And, you know, basically that's what's happened. So I suspect that's what's going on here. Anyway, it did not close up perfectly. So, but it's pretty tight. It's not a big gaping gap. Let's take a look at it again. You know, it's not like you're gonna, nothing's gonna fall through this. It's just, I'm getting my cuticle out of the way here. It is just a crack at this point. And it actually closed up decently down here. So the first thing I did was to take Titebond 3. Now, Titebond 3 is not your normally used Titebond glue, but there's a couple of reasons that I like it for this kind of situation. This is Titebond 3. This is a waterproof glue, okay? So it's not coming apart with steam and that sort of thing, like regular Titebond would do. The reason I'm using it for a top crack like this is because it's a little bit flexible, okay? It doesn't dry hard and stiff. If a glue dries hard and stiff on an archtop instrument, the top has to flex a little bit, and the top's going to rise and fall, and a stiff glue will usually just crack again. Hot hide glue is an exception, but hot hide glue is a totally different kind of glue, which is not going to work in this case because there's a little bit of a gap. So that gap, Titebond 3 is pretty good. It's not as good as epoxy, but it's way better than Titebond Original, and it's far better than any kind of fish glue, hide glue, or any animal protein glue at filling gaps. We have a very, very, very small gap here. I'm not trying to fill a big gap. I wouldn't do that with this or on this mandolin. Tiny gap. Titebond 3 is pretty good at filling gaps. So you got a little bit of a gap closing, got filling property, and you got a little bit of flexibility property. The third thing, the reason I like Titebond 3 is it dries dark. So it looks like a grain line in this case. If you use regular Titebond or fish glue, it's going to have a color to it. Fish glue is going to have like a little glisten to it, and regular Titebond is going to look almost white. And we don't want that. We want a dark line like this, so it looks like a grain line, so it looks dark, you know. So that's why I'm using Titebond 3. Now, before I put glue into here, I took some spruce, and I shaved spruce, and I made very, very fine spruce shavings here, and I rubbed them into that crack as best as I could. So I did use a little bit of wood in there, but I didn't use a splice of wood. I just used dust, you know. And not much of it went in there, so, you know, there wasn't much I did. But what I was trying to do is make a glue dust paste. The glue itself is not a really good gap filler, but what if you put dust in there to fill in the gaps, and you have basically concrete at that point. You know, concrete is concrete dust, and then you add your water into it, and you fill in the gaps like that. So, you know, basically that's what you're doing, is you're making wood concrete. And it's a fairly well accepted technique. It's not going to be, you know, super strong. You wouldn't want to do it for something that required a lot of strength, you know, a lot of shear strength or pull strength or anything like that. But in this situation, all we're trying to do is give that glue a little bit more of something to grab onto. So that's what I did. I put the glue in there, and it's been about 3 hours now. It says clamp for a minimum of 30 minutes. So we're probably about ready to take these clamps off. I put clamps, just a little bit of side pressure on here. I got a little bit of squeeze out on the back right here. Let's take camera. I got a little bit of squeeze out right here, and I didn't get any squeeze out at all right there. And when I stuck my inspection mirror in there, that's what I saw. I did not see any glue really go through up here. I saw some glue go through down here, and you can see the glue droplets in there. So that gives me some confidence that the crack is pretty tight. Okay, so I'm going to take these clamps off because they're not really doing anything. Anyways, now the third step on this thing, and this is where it's going to get kind of fun. This is a technique that I developed. I'm sure other people do it. I'm not going to take full credit for it, but it is a technique that I developed on the Elkhorn when I needed to fill it. You've got a long crack, or you've got a top seam, and you want to reinforce it. On a guitar, if you had a crack, you might use a cleat like this, and you would put the cleat in there. And so if the top grain is running this way, you're going to put your cleat with the grain running this way. And when you do that, it's really hard to pull apart. And I've got some pieces of wood around here where I have tested pull strength, like here's one. This is just a piece of wood that's glued together. But I've got some that are overlapping pieces, and I've tried to pull them apart, and I've taken two pieces of wood and put them together and glued them together with various kind of cleats and things like that, and tried to pull them apart. What I found out is that you can use an extremely thin cleat. This cleat is 15 thousandths of an inch right now. 15 thousandths of an inch. I mean, this thing is thin, but because the grain runs this way, it's really, really strong here. You try to pull this apart and you can't. You come over here and you can pull it apart very easily. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a long cleat like this. This is a piece of spruce. The grain is running this way, which is perpendicular to the top grain on this mandolin. So here's what this cleat's going to look like right there. It's going to be about that long, and I'm probably going to trim it a little bit before I actually do it. Then I have these little handles right here, and I can take it over to the belt sander and sand it very carefully. What I want is for this cleat to be so thin that it's going to form to the top when I put some pressure on it. So let's get this GoPro. We're going to zoom in right here, and I'm going to try to show you what's going on here. Okay, so here's this cleat. And this is just a test cleat, okay? I just wanted this to show you it's easy to handle. This thing is going to be so thin when I get ready to put it in that I'm going to have to run a piece of tape across it to actually hold the cleat together. And I'm probably going to leave the tape in there, and it won't be a big deal because you won't, you know, it's not going to be visible. But the tape is actually going to be holding this cleat together. It's going to be so thin, it's going to want to fall apart. So the grain, take a look at the grain. It's running this way. In fact, let me put a pencil line on here for you. Okay, so now you can see the pencil line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set that on there, and I'm going to push on it and see if it's going to form to the top. And it is. It's thin enough that when I clamp it, it's going to form to the top. You've got to form more or less to the arch of this top. Now, you might think, oh, well, you know, why don't you just form the cleat to it? Put a piece of sandpaper on top and form it like this. But the problem is you don't know if it's got the same curve on the inside as you do on the outside. So you could get close on this, and you could probably make it fit a little bit better. And I might actually do that. I might take this cleat, and just when I get it down to 15 thousandths of an inch or so, I might put a little bit of sandpaper on the top right here, tape it, and I might go ahead and shape this cleat just ever so slightly to the top. Give it just a little bit of a curve so that when I go to clamp it and press it in there, it'll form to that top as best as I possibly can. Now, your glue is going to help you a little bit there. And the main thing is that you get your cleat going across the top seam here. So if it sticks out just a little bit on the edges, it's going to be okay. We're going to make 90%, it's not going to be perfect probably inside, but it's going to be pretty good. So again, the whole point of doing this is to make a super, super, super thin cleat that when it gets pressure on it from my clamps, that it's going to form to the top. And this one is doing that right now. So I feel confident that this is going to be all right. So I'm putting pressure on it like this, and it's forming to the top pretty good. And it's definitely making a good grip right here. I could thin this cleat down a little bit too. It doesn't have to be this big, but it doesn't hurt it to be that big because it's super, super thin. Super thin. All right, now you're going to ask yourself, how in the world am I going to get something like this inside this mandolin? Well, we're going to go into the F-holes here, and we will have to test this. Now, one thing I could do is I could do this in two parts. I could cut this cleat in half, and I could work with it in two parts, but I don't think I'm going to have to do that. What I did on my mandolin was I made sure that the cleat would fit here. And it will. It will fit. I might have to cut it thinner just a little bit here, but I'm going to make sure that cleat fits in there. What I'm going to do then, I'm going to take 1/32 of an inch drill bit. And you can get these drill bits from a Dremel micro drill bit kit. 1/32 of an inch. And then it's very small. I'm going to drill a hole right here, which is going to be hidden by the tailpiece. I'm going to drill a hole right there. And I'm going to drill a hole right here, which is going to be hidden by the bridge. So you won't be able to see these two. And then I'm going to use these windlass clamps, which go on the top like this. And as you turn them, it's got a guitar tuner, it's no big deal. Your string goes through here, and as you turn them, it pulls the string up. So I'm going to run a guitar string down through each of these holes, bring it out through the F-hole. And then I'm going to run that string through a hole that I drill in here. So the guitar string is going to come through here. And then what you got to do is you got to figure out a way to stop that. So last time what I did was I took an old string ball, and I'm going to show you all this when we get to doing it. But when that happens, I'm going to have to move fast, and I'm not going to be able to sit here and explain this process. So what I did was I took an old string ball and took my loosened string, wrapped it around there, and tied it shut like this, okay? Tied it so that the string ball is on the other side of this and stops it. And I might even put another piece of wood on here to help expand our clamping surface. And then I have is 2 pieces of string here, and I can go like this and pull them up, and I can pull this cleat to the inside and bring it to where I want it. And it will bring it exactly where I want it, because it's hard to get these things lined up like this, you know, trying to reach in there and use your regular clamps and that kind of thing. It's impossible. So I will pull the strings up, use these windlass clamps, tighten them up, and those 2 will hold the ends. And then what I would do is I would get my magnets right here, and I would run magnets in there, boom, and I would bring in and anchor the rest of the cleat with magnets. Now usually I can get 3 magnets in there. You can't get your magnets too close together, they'll attract to each other and go flump, and then you have, you know, then you lost your magnet inside there. But I would use magnets to clamp the rest of the cleat in there, and that'll work really good. It worked really good the first time I did it. I got a bunch of magnets up there, and they don't have to be super strong, you know, but they'll be strong enough. So I'll have the windlass clamp at these 2 ends, and I'll have hopefully 3 magnets. Hopefully I can get 3 in here. But I should be able to get at least 2. And that'll be good. You know, that'll be good enough. Because the magnets themselves, are, you know, they've got a pretty good surface. They've got a pretty good flat surface here. And so that's going to cover quite a bit of cleat, as you can see. So, all right. So that's what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to work for a little bit, and then I'll come back on the camera. And I'm waiting for my 3/32 of an inch drill bit to come in, because I have 2 of them this side. I don't have any of them here. I've got a 1/16, but I don't think I'm going to use a 1/16. It's just a little bit too big of a hole. If that's all I can get, I will. But I really want the 1/32. I need the 1/16 for some other stuff, though, so it's not a loss buying it. This is a 3/32. 60 thousandths of an inch. Yeah. So I'm waiting on the drill bit. I need to form that cleat. I need to get the cleat formed. And I do have a little bit of glue in this crack here, but I don't have enough to make it solid. And I want it solid. This is a working mandolin. It sees a lot of different conditions. And we don't want something that's kind of might or might not. You know, we want it solid. Like I said, I use this technique on my personal mandolin, and it's been solid. So I feel good about using on this Gilchrist mandolin here, which is, you know, top shelf mandolin. We got to fix that crack, though. We want this thing solid. And so my point of this being is that I don't think that cleat is going to hurt the sound at all. In fact, you know, you're holding the top together, and you're stiffening it just maybe a little bit in the middle, which is good. It'll help send the vibrations more out. And we're not going to hurt anything on this mandolin by doing this. So, but we want to think this out, and we want to make sure that we thought the process out and anticipated problems and things like that. So I was not going to put the cleat in it at first, but then it just bothered me. You know, it's like, you know, that's only halfway. Just put the cleat in it. Put the cleat in it. It's not that tricky of a deal. It's just a matter of getting this thing sanded. And one sec. I have this wood here that I use for neck reset shims. And it's a mahogany, Spanish cedar, something like that. You know, it's a mahogany kind of wood. It's very thin and it's very flexible. And I could use this wood if I wanted to for a cleat. The reason I'm not, see, it's really flexible. If you lay this on here, you can see it's going to have no issue forming to that top, as is right now. I could I've got a full-size sheet of this. I've been cutting it this way. I've got a full-size sheet, and I could go cut me a splint out of this, and I could put it in there right now. And I might do that, but the problem with this is that I don't like the grain is a little bit kind of weak, you know? This grain is not as strong and directional as the spruce is. And also that's spruce. This is a spruce top, spruce grain. I just kind of like that. But you could probably, you know, I would not object if somebody used this in here as a shim material. It's, you know, it's pretty good. It's light, thin. It could go in there very, very easily. It's forming beautifully to the top because it is flexible. So this is something to think about. And I am thinking about it. I have not made up my mind completely on this, you know. If I have trouble with this spruce, getting it as thin as I want, I'm not going to hesitate to use this because it's thin right off the bat. I'm not going to have to go any thinner. 20 thousandths of an inch and just super light. You know, this whole entire sheet weighs nothing. Neither does this. So that's what we want. We want stiff, strong, light on this cleat. Whew! All that talk to show you the setup here, but I want you to understand my thought process here and what the pros and cons are of this. And I am just not a cookie cutter kind of guy. I think about this thing a lot, and I think about the different options that I might have, and then I make a decision based upon what I think is the best option for this instrument. A Gilchrist mandolin, you know. You know, I'm not dealing with with a Kentucky mandolin here. All due respect to Kentucky mandolins, but I'm not dealing with a Kentucky. I'm dealing with a Gilchrist here, from a demanding professional player, and so we want to make the best, rightest decision that we can make here, and so that's why I think that spruce is going to be the way to go, if I can do it. And I do want to cleat that. That's my experience with it. So what we're going to do, all right, I'm going to let this glue here dry, and waiting on that 1/32 of an inch drill bit. Going to go sand that cleat down, get it happy, take my time on that, make sure it's right. So I will see you guys later. All right, we're about ready to go on this thing. I've got the holes drilled in the top. And that was, believe me, you know, you're drilling on a $25,000 mandolin and you gotta really think about this. But it's the best solution here, and we're going to be able to cover those up to where they shouldn't be visible at all. And again, they're going to be hidden underneath the tailpiece and underneath the bridge, but still. It's complicated a little bit because this has a pickup in it. And I want the pickup out of the way because the hole is just a little bit high right here. You got to drill in through the end pin. I may have installed that, I don't know. But this hole is pretty high up here. The jack was blocking this. I needed to get the jack out of the way. Now, I pulled it through here, and I've got this deal that I made here a while back. That's just a jack with a washer JB welded on it. I use this as a strap button in, but it works really good here to keep this from falling back in. There's two, it's a K and K pickup, so there's a wire here and a wire here. I've got to make sure that this cleat goes through the wire. So, in other words, I've got a wire hanging right here, and this cleat has to go through that wire and get pulled up into the top here. I definitely don't want to catch that wire. That wire is hanging, and I don't want the cleat to pick that wire up and get glued because that's going to be a mess. So we don't want that to happen. Okay. Whew. So, one more thing I need to do here. I've got a little bit of a glue squeeze out right here, so I need to get in there and sand that. And the best way to do that is to get another magnet, two magnets, find out which way they stick. Okay, they want to stick that way. So the sandpaper is going to go on the top of this. So I need to get me a little square of sandpaper. And this will do just fine. Let's cut it. This is a pretty useful technique too. Yeah, Yeah, that'll work. Get a little square of sandpaper. And I find that just using putty works pretty good. If I can find my putty. Now, let me get this together here. Man, it's just always one thing or another that I got to get together. There's always one more tool, as I'm always saying. But we would cut this. I like this square sandpaper better. If I'm going to go in here and do this, I want to go ahead and get a nice, fresh piece of sandpaper. And I'm just going to round these edges off a little bit so that it doesn't snag on anything. Like this. Okay. And this is the way it's going up. I'm going to set it right there. I had a bunch of putty stuck on the board here, so let me just grab another set. I sell K&K pickups, and it comes with all this putty. And I never use the putty for anything, so I have tons of it sitting around here. So what I'm going to do, pull off a little bit of this. And we're probably going to need it for something else here in a minute when we go to fish this into here. Stick the putty on a piece of sandpaper, like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put that inside the mandolin. Got to get around the tone bars. And bring it out here, and I'm going to check it with my mirror. Make sure it's doing what I hope it's doing. Get my mirror. And slide that in there. Yeah, I've got sandpaper. We're going to slide this back and forth here. Probably get the whole seam just to make sure there's no glue there. Make sure you can see this. So here's what we have. Okay, here's a close-up of this. So there's that powerful magnet, and magnet inside there with a piece of sandpaper. And you could, if this was a varnish finish, I would probably protect the top with a piece of wax paper or something. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually pulling the magnet off of the top, just a little bit. So I'm not letting the magnet actually touch the top. We're going to slide it back and forth. This is amazingly effective. I knew all those years of playing air hockey would come in handy here, because this is in fact air hockey feel. Let's see how we're doing. Set it aside. Take another look. So much prep work. This is not a matter of just sticking the cleat in there. You know, you got to get it all ready and prepared. Getting there. Sand a little bit more. You got a cross grain on it too. Trying to knock down that high glue on. See what we got. This makes me nervous. You know what? I think it was right there. I'm gonna scoot this up here. This is right here at the end block, and by looking at it, I can see I might be pretty good to go in there with a little scraper. Let me find a scraper of some sort. What can I use for a scraper? I need something like this. Just scrape. Oh, right here. This chisel will work. Take this chisel. Let's see if I can reach in there. Because it's right there. Yeah. I can feel that. I'm going to put it up on this. Oh, yeah. I can see the top flexing. You know, that shows you how thin the top actually is, though. When you reach in there, you can see the top in the light. What I'm doing is taking this chisel, and I'm just kind of working it in here like this and just carefully knocking that glue loose. But I can, if you look, you might be able to see the top reflecting the light right there. And you can see it moving. Just a little, you know. That's good. Let's see what that looks like. Get out of that effort. That's darn near. This is just about as clean as I'm ever gonna get it. Now, what I notice is that my hole is right up against the neck block. Tail block. So I'm gonna have to make my cleat. Where'd my cleat go? I have this with a hole drilled in the middle of it, and that's not gonna pull up. So what I need to do is I need to move this hole over to here, to the edge, so that it'll pull up against it. You follow me? The way this hole is in the middle, it's gonna hit the end block. Let me think if it'll still do it. No, it won't. It won't do it good. I need to move that hole clear back to the edge here. And the same thing here. On the actual cleat, I need to clip this off just a little bit. And I'm going to do a test run on this before I put any glue on there. For sure. It might still work. Because really the magnets are going to be the main thing. So think about this. Wish I drilled that hole just a little bit further up, but we'll make it work. So let's do a little bit more sanding now that I've got that down. It takes time, you know? Oh, that's real clean. Wow. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's really super smooth in there now. All the glue stuff is gone. So I'm super happy with that. That's really good. And that's just an example. You got to take your time on these things. You got to do it right. Don't rush it. So the top is super smooth now. I like that a lot. So let's bring this out of here. I got a lot of hair. And we shifted a little bit, you know, but that's okay. That's okay. So I'm going to get the magnet over here. Like I said, as long as I get that cleat into position, I can use the magnets right up against here. I'm just using this string and the windlass and all that to pull the cleat into position. And then I have a couple of options. I've got magnets. I've got several magnets here. And I can use them to actually do my majority of my clamping. Got a bunch of magnets over there. Probably better go get those. And we should be in good shape. So, we're ready to do a test run, I think. And what we're going to do, here's a string. Here's a guitar string. And there's no ball ends on this. This is a string. I have a set of ball ends over here. Right here. And that's what I'm going to tie to here. So the first thing to do here is to come through here and make sure that I miss the pickup wires. And I think it's going to be easiest to make sure I get a little bit of a bend in here in the strings. And we're going to push this one through. This is the one I'm concerned about. The front one is going to automatically clear, but on this one, we've got to make sure we clear the pickup wire here. That's going to be tricky. I'm trying to look in here and find this wire. I almost wonder how magnetic that is. Not bad. I wonder if I can got it with the magnet. Stupid pickup. Pickup is a pain right now. Okay, where's the wire? There it is. My gosh, I might be clear. I may have it clear. So we're going to push it through here. And then I got to have a way to reach in there and grab that. So what I'm going to do, put this magnet on top of the file and reach in there and see if I can get it. Got it. There it is. Come on, baby. Woohoo! Okay, so I got my wire through here. Now, let's see if I cleared the pickup wire. By golly, I got it. Cool. It's up on top of the pickup wire, so I'm clear. And we should get this free. We should get this free. These magnets. Well, I guess you guys can stick together for a while. All right, now, here's my cleat. And I've got a piece of tape on it to help hold it together. And this end is going to go up here. So what we do is push it through. Push it through the cleat. Let's bring the camera over here a little bit, see if we can get this closer. Ugh. You know what I'm going to do? I definitely don't want to be pulling this through. So I'm going to go ahead and that's not going to hold. I want a good solid connection on this. I could run it through that already. I could run it through this. Go ahead and hold it. Yeah. Let's just do that. So we're going to take this and we're going to do something I would never do with a normal string, and that's I'm going to tie a knot in it so it doesn't come through. Don't be too much weight. I think that'll be okay out there. It's got a bend in it now. Okay, so this is going to go this way. That's going to go this way. So this goes through here like that. and then my little hole right here. And I'm going to go ahead and drill another hole in this just to see if I can make it stick better. Although it's not going to make any difference. Yeah, not going to make any difference. Because it's just going to have to pull into position here anyways. Yeah, it'll be okay. Okay, so there's a string going through there. Now I get this, and I'm not even going to bother cutting the end of it off, because that's going to help me pull it out when the time comes. So what I'm going to do is put this ball end on here, and I will zoom in for a close-up here in just a second, as soon as I get this together here. And then what's going to happen is just going to pull up against it. And I don't even care if this ball end really gets up on there. I just need it to pull in. And in fact, I don't want it to pull up in there because this is a double thick, and it's not going to fit through the hole. So I really don't even want that to come through there like that. I want this to just pull tight against here. The ball end is really just to keep this thing from slipping through. So this is going to be just fine like this. Let's tug on a little bit. And again, all this is going to do is get this cleat into place. I'm really not going to pull up against it too much. The pickup wire is complicating so much. And this is the first time, it's only the second time I've actually done this. And first time I've done it with a pickup. So just, you know, next time I ever have to do this, get the pickup out of the way. And this works good. I'll be able to resolder that, no problem. I can bring this wire over here and solder it, and that's no issue. So now I've got that cleat, and now I can do a test run on this cleat without catching on everything in the world. So I'm going to stick it in here, shove all this stuff in here. There we go. And now I can bring it into position just like this, and I can do a test run on it. Perfect. Put my mirror back. Check this. Where's my mirror? There's my mirror. And, man, I don't think I can get the camera in here, but let's see what we can do. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see if we can get the camera up here. Take a look. Okay, there. That's not bad. You can see the cleat laying up in there. And there's that. And I'm not too worried about the back of it yet, because basically I've got it lined out. And so what's going to happen then is I will use the magnets to smooth it. So this is hard to explain, okay? So I'm not worried about it not laying flat all the way right now. It's laying flat up here. And so what I would do is get the glue in there, and then I will run the magnets in there, and I'll run the magnet down the cleat, and that will flatten it out. So I'm not too worried about this one not flattening it yet, because all I want to do is get it lined out in position. So I want to get it lined from here to here. I don't want the cleat crooked, which if you've ever put cleats in before, you know that that's one of the hardest things, is to get the darn thing straight, because it wants to turn this way and that way. So really all these strings and things you're doing is just getting the cleat lined out along the thing, and I'll use the magnets to smooth it out. This one is nice and straight, and that's all that matters right now. So I've got a successful test run. I'm happy with this. I'm going to put glue on it. We're going to glue it in. And man, it was so much easier getting this thing out of the way, getting this pickup out of the way, because now I can pull this back and forth, you know, all I want. You know what I need to do? I need to attach another string to the ball end so that I can pull it when I come out. Otherwise, that ball is going to get stuck in there. So that's what we figured out from this test run. So I'll show you that in a minute. You know, that's where the fishing line would be really good. And I'm going to go in the house, and I'm going to get some fishing line, and I'm going to come back out here, and then we're going to do the final setup. But we've got a test run, and I'm happy with the way it's going to work. And I'll show you the fishing line thing here in just a second. I'll be back. All right, that's acceptable. Now I can see the top well enough. Here we go. Whew. Deep breath. We can back up a little bit here. I mean, this isn't the end of the world, but I don't want to make a big glue mess in there. And I am putting plenty of glue because you're always going to rub a little bit off as you go in here. So I want to make sure I've got enough glue. I'm not too worried about squeeze out. Because this is a very difficult procedure. Here we go. Slide all this in here. Pull this one. Pull this one. Okay. This is where I'm going to go ahead and use the windlass to make sure this stays in place. And again, this Titebond 3 gives me a pretty good, pretty long clamping time. I've got about a half an hour on this. Okay, that will at least hold that in place. I'll try to figure out why this isn't going in. There it is. Okay. So, magnet number 1. Across the top. On the cleat. Oh yeah, good squeeze out there. Beautiful. Okay, now fish my dead man out of here. Let's see if I can't get it in there. That's good. It's lined up good. So this one can come on out now. Man, this is like building a ship in a bottle, you know? And I think we're going to leave that right there until I get this lined up. Okay. I'm over it now. Pop. Get that out of the way. Okay, we got that all the way to the end block now. So that one's on there clamped very nicely. And very happy with that. I can see the squeeze out. So now we got to get some more magnets in there. Get this out of the way. Get a big magnet. Here it is. Okay. Got it. Stuck on the cleat for just a minute, you know. And we're going to put that one right there. We don't want to get too close to the other one. But what I am going to do is I'm going to move it back and forth here and make it flatten out the cleat so that the glue will at least stick. So I'm going to flatten out the cleat, smear the glue in there. And we're going to park it right here for a second. Well, I'll do the same thing with this one. So what I'm doing is using the magnet to flatten that cleat out. Like this, to make sure that there's no creases or anything like that. And I'm pretty happy with it so far. I can see it, it's nice and flat, and it's molded to the top. Looks really good. Got some squeeze out. So we're gonna park this one right there. And we're gonna park this one right here. And this windlass is holding on the front, so that's good. I'm gonna leave it in there. I'm gonna leave it in there. It'd be nice if I could get one more magnet in the middle. So I got these two on there. So I'll have a little bit of time. I need to rig up another magnet. Wondering if I should use a small magnet or a big magnet. Let's go with the big magnet. Let's try it. And I just hope it doesn't grab the other two. Ah, yeah, those are strong. Okay, here we go. Got it. Boys and girls, that is as close as I'm going to get it right there. I'm parking it. In fact, I can feel it. I can feel this one pushing away from this one because I've got the polarity reversed on them. And so they're kind of balancing each other out right here. And you can also see by looking at the magnets that I got it lined up pretty good on the strip here. So, whew. I like it. Let's take a look. Yeah, you can see. You can see the windlass right here. There's the three magnets. And that could use a little bit more tension on it, which I'll put on it in just a minute. And then you can see the magnets lined up there. You can see the strip. And there's a little bit of squeeze out right there. And that's going to be nice. And we got that crack closed up pretty good. But the main thing is that cleat is going to make it really strong. So, gosh, that's a lot of work. And I'm not even done yet because I gotta fill in those holes that I drilled. But we have made really good progress, and I feel happy about this. I'm gonna go ahead and clamp this windlass up a little bit. Okay, many hours have passed. I'm not going to string it up yet, but I'm going to go ahead and take the stuff off and maybe go ahead and put the pickup back in and some things like that. Boy, the crack looks really good. I'll show you when I get these apart. So, man, we got to get all this junk out of here. Start with this first magnet here. There we go. There's our dust. And then what we want to do is just push that down in there. Fill that hole. Go down to this end. Do the same thing. Now this one's dark, but it's going to be hidden under the tailpiece anyways, so not a big deal. I mean, look how good it looks already. There's the hole. And that one we're gonna probably stain with a Sharpie or something. Let's see what the glue looks like. Now I'm gonna take some glue and just run a little bit of glue on there. And put more dust in there. The glue is to hold the dust. And I've used super glue. But I don't want to make a super glue mess on this instrument. Just going to do this. And then take the dust and rub it back in there again. So, A little bit more glue. Well, like I said, I don't mind if there's a little bit of a hole that's visible, because it does tell the next repairman where the repair is. So if for some reason somebody has to drill these holes again, they can go back into here. You know what I mean? Like when I'm doing neck resets and I take the fret off, if I see a hole that somebody else has been into before, I would drill into that hole if I can and not make another hole. Alright, so there's that. And I think I can still get a little bit more dust in there, so hang on. Get a little bit finer dust this way than I got off of the bandsaw. That's pretty good. That one looks pretty good. Oh, am I going to get any better than that? Yeah. So there's what we have. We got two little holes like that. Bridge is going to cover that one. This one's down here. It looks really obvious under the light, but it's not that bad in real life. And I'll show you how we can touch that up. Not bad. You know, you can see it if you go looking for it, but... Well, here we are. Here's the finished mandolin, and I'm in my music room right now rather than the shop, because I finished this a little while ago, and I actually did another recording of it, which compared it to my Chris shop mandolin. I don't want to go back out to the shop to film this again, so here we are. It's all done. Pick guard is on. I fixed the pick guard. There was a part of another video on that, and I just needed to reinforce the little block that's back in here. And I do believe I added that block at one time. So that's all taken care of. I epoxied everything up here. The pick guard's rejuvenated. It's got the right angle. I love this about this. I'm not sure if I saw this on Gilchrist or Montalona at first, but definitely don't see this on Gibson. And that is the way the pick guard angles with the top. And I've always liked that. And every time I put a pick guard on myself, I always try to angle it with the top. And I'll go grab my Chris shot in a minute. But anyway, so I always do that. I got the pickup back in it. Pickups in, tailpieces on, everything's on there. And one of the points that I was trying to do here is, if you remember from the very first video, I said that the mandolin doesn't have any neck relief. And normally that's not a problem. You want mandolins to have really flat necks. But in this case, what happens is the humidity goes up, and this mandolin actually gets a little bit of a back bow to it. So the owner of the mandolin asked me to make sure that it has a little bit of relief. And so here's what we have now that it's been strung up for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours now. And you can come in here, and I'm holding the A string, and we do have a little bit of relief. I'm holding it right there. Doesn't have a whole lot of relief, but it's got enough. It's not backbowed, and that was the whole point we were trying to get there. So here's what the frets look like, and remember the whole deal here is I was using wider frets for the first 12, and then after that I left the narrow frets in place. And so you can see what that looks like. And, you know, you really have to kind of look at it because it's an optical illusion. The upper frets are a little bit lower, a few thousandths of an inch, a little bit lower than these frets. So when you get up here, the action does get a little bit higher, but it's nothing that you're really going to notice. And by the time you're up here, you're kind of out of your regular playing position, and you're working on those upper frets, and you got more string bounce to push on. It's completely unnoticeable. So if I got the extra fret height, I'm sorry, the extra action. So if I'm fretting this, I'm fretting this, I'm fretting this, I'm fretting this, I don't notice, you know, anything there. And you do have more room for your fingers in between here, just a little bit, you know. If the owner decides later on, yeah, man, I really want wide frets the whole way, no problem. You know, we just pull these frets out and put wide frets in. Not a big deal, you know. And then if he decides, no, man, I hate these wide frets, I want the skinny frets again. Okay, cool. We just pull 12 and we replace those with skinny frets. And so I thought this was a good solution to make sure you like the wide frets before I do 22 of them, you know. I did 12 of them. All right, what else about it? The top crack came out really, really good. I'm really pleased with that. It's closed up. You can't even really tell it's a crack. You can tell it's a seam. You know, you can see the top seam. No big deal. And I'm super happy with having that. I keep calling it a splint, and then I go to a splice, and it's a cleat. Yeah, super, super thin cleat, which is what the whole video is about, really. I'm really happy having that in there, and I know that it's going to hold this top together, and we're not going to have any more issues with it. So you can see what it looks like. There's a close-up of it. I'm pretty sure GoPro is going to get that. I did make one very small mistake, which I'm going to correct a little bit more here. And there's the hole that I drilled right there. I misjudged where I thought the bridge was, and I should have put that hole up about a ½ an inch under the bridge. But it's not a big deal. You can see it right now, and I'm going to touch it up a little bit more, make it look a little bit more invisible. I'll probably use a little bit of a drop of shellac to hide that, because this is just glue and dust right now. But I guarantee I'll make that a little bit more invisible. And even if I don't, it's no big deal. That's a very common thing to see in crack repairs, a small hole like that. And the second one, like I said, is underneath the tailpiece. It's completely gone. I had the advantage of having the dark wood here that I darkened, you know. And so if you don't have the tailpiece on there, you can't even see it. So anyway, I'll make that look a little bit better. But the most important thing is that the crack itself is closed up and looks really good. It just looks like a top seam now. So I'm super happy with that. Plays great. I checked the fret level. I'll check the fret level again several times before I actually send it back home and just make sure everything's good and level. The complication that I had with the frets, just as an aside, because this video is really about the crack repair, the complication is that the radius on the fingerboard is so steep. It's a 6-inch radius or something like that. And it's hard to get your frets curved that much, you know, because especially Evo, you know, Evo doesn't just bend like nickel silver does. And it's hard to get them bent to a 6-inch radius, you know. So you can't press them in quite as nice as you can with 12, 16-inch radius where your frets are already at much more gentle curve. When you got to bend those frets like that, it's hard to get them bent evenly. So you can end up with, it's just not as clean of a fret job as I would like for it to be. So, but they're pretty good, and I'm just going to double check everything many times before I send it back. So I'll put the truss rod cover on and finish up the screws here. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to see if there's a little bit of, if that nut's a little bit loose or anything. So I'm going to keep playing it for, you know, another week or two. And what else? I fixed a little crack that was right here. No big deal. Just push that down, got some glue on it. It's fine. Super common to get cracks right there, you know. This is a weak piece of wood right here. I hate to go pushing on it. So I've already done a video of me playing it, but I will fire up the good microphone here and let's play a little bit more on it, since it is, after all, a Gilchrist mandolin. You know, I don't just have a whole bunch of these coming through the shop. And this particular one is a mandolin that I have known for quite a while. I've played with the owner many times, and, you know, just a good friend of mine. And so this is kind of a special, personal mandolin to me. So I'm definitely going to put it on video here and get some recordings of it. So, wow, that was a long process, sir. And but I'm glad I did it. I feel really super confident in it now. So, all right, see you later. I had that done. I was making that up right there. How's that go? Let me think. Let me see if I can get that right.